Ladies and gentlemen, welcome to episode number 9 of the Coarse Grind Podcast. My name is Sean Rossler. I am your host, your guide to all things culinary, and this evening I cannot even begin to contain my excitement at yet another stroke of my amazing fortune at talking to apparently the right person at the right time. So it's pretty much a given that Top Chef has been one of my favorite shows of all time and a massive inspiration to do this podcast. Having cheftestant as my first guest, who you all might remember as Dakota Weiss, was an incredible experience that I thought I wouldn't get the chance to do again. I was very, very wrong. And as such, I am very, very excited. Stoked, if you will. My guest today is trained for many years in back of house and in front of house operations with great chefs like Jean-Georges, Sean Doty, and Anne Catrano. She believes a great chef must understand how to run a business as well as possess outstanding cooking skills. She's also a certified sommelier with extensive wine knowledge and loves not being restricted to any one particular cuisine and experiments with flavors and ingredients from all over the world. She considers growing up in New York to be the best culinary education one can obtain and says her family and friends constantly tease her about how passionate she is about food. This came through incredibly so, I might add, when I was introduced to her culinary skills on season 4 of Top Chef, and I am beyond honored to have her here with me this evening. Ladies and gentlemen, and everyone in between, my guest this evening, Chef Nikki Cascone-Grossman. Chef, how are you doing this evening?
Hi, Sean. Thanks for the intro. I'm doing good.
Not a problem at all. Good. So just to give you an idea how this evening's going to go, we're going to break this down into 3 sections. We're going to start with the starter section, where you came from, where you came up from. We're going to go to the main section, what are you doing now, and what are you looking to do in the near future? And the after section kind of deals with questions that are a little bit more maybe out of the box, a little bit more edgy, but we can get to that more when we get there. So without further ado, Chef, tell me, where did you grow up eating?
I was born in Brooklyn, and I really am a true New Yorker in the sense that I come from a mixed marriage, and one of my parents is a Russian Jew, and the other one is a Sicilian Catholic. And so that's, a very common New York marriage. And with that and where I grew up, I always really had access to very ethnic food, strong traditions revolving around food, and of course, all the great food in and around New York City and, the boroughs. And food was always a very central part of my upbringing, for sure.
Right on. Yeah, and I mean, having just been up there to see the Statue of Liberty, as I think you and I discussed on Facebook, it is such a diverse area, and somebody like myself coming from northeastern / central Pennsylvania can really forget about how amazingly varied the tapestry can be up there. So to hear you coming from all those 4 angles is just amazing. When you were growing up in this, amazingly diverse and awesome background, what kind of an eater would your parents or would you say you were? Were you picky?
I was not picky, for sure. I think I was a very good eater from the time I was young. And, Sean, I really believe that you're either born with something, wired in your makeup as a person that is the way that you look at food very different from someone else may look at food. And that is just when you're young, it's more of an emotion and a feeling. And then when you're older, if you really can cultivate it and bring it to fruition, maybe you do something more with it. For me, as a young child, I always remember being one of the last of a very large family at the table. I always remember being curious about, what was being cooked and how it was being prepared. All of my jobs from the time I was 14, which includes my first job, always seemed to centralize around food. And Even though I don't think I was as exposed to, maybe a gourmet aspect of it, I had that rustic sense, which was to become the foundation for me of my entire career. And my food is very rustic and very simple and very much um, my whole life and my childhood, and what makes me feel the best and the most comfortable preparing. So I was a great eater, but I do remember certain things, like, as a child, maybe I wasn't in love with mushrooms, but then by the time I was like 20, I couldn't get enough of every kind of mushroom, I remember, things like that, but I never remember being like, oh God, that's gross. Or, my grandmother making tripe and eating tripe or brajol or, things like that were very normal to me. And people now look at me and say, you eat that? So I think I was lucky in that respect, but I was a good eater. I would actually often eat more and longer than most of the men in my family. So my mother always says to me, I would have absolutely 100% guessed that your career would have been in food by the way you were as a child with food.
That's amazing. That's absolutely astounding, because so many times when I ask people, and I mean, I have 9 episodes, so clearly I've asked the question 9 times. Every one of those 9 times that I've asked it, it's this, what we think. We are made to think culturally that, oh, kids are shitty eaters, and they're not, when it's presented to them in such a loving and caring way. And it sounds to me like, your grandma, your family in general, really just kind of put that out to you, and you just absorbed everything you could, and clearly it's carried over to present day.
Yeah, and I think, look, is a clear difference. Like I said, there are, 20 something cousins, grandchildren on my side, including, I can just think of my older and my younger brother, who are both not great eaters. And again, I think, and I've said this and I said it on the show during my season, there is something that you are innately born with. It's a talent. It's a different, I'm sorry, I compare it to, being born with a musical talent or musical gift. And I'm not necessarily speaking of, your talent as a chef, although I think it's part of it, that creativity level, because a lot of being a chef is very technical, and you can have that and you can be trained. But the part that I'm referring to is, again, that special something that you're born with. And it to me, it's a gift. And I don't think, look at you, for example. You're not a chef by trade. You obviously are passionate about this, and this is your way to kind of share that with the world. But it's something you feel so passionate about that you've gone and created this platform. And so, I do think you were born with that something. And so, that it's either you have it or you don't. I say that all the time. I've had cooks and so many students come through my kitchen, and I can tell you within 24 hours. And it's just amazing to me. And I've worked with the ones that are technically gifted that have no creativity. And I've worked with the ones that, have nothing and it's just a job. And then you get the ones that it's just a gift. It's just a natural thing. I love to use Richard Blais as an example, because to me, that's someone who I could never imagine doing anything else in the world. It's not a job for him. It was a gift. You know what I mean?
Yep. Absolutely. And, watching him as much as I have and as much as I do, that there's something. And let me backtrack here for a minute and say that I've never been as flattered as to have you just say what you just did about me, that I somehow have some gift. And I never, much the same as I think you think about it, like I've never voluntarily thought about it. It's just something. It's a way I look at a plate versus the way, the next 10 dudes on down the line look at a plate. I think there's more to it. I think there's magic to it. And I think, like you said, you nailed it right on the head. It's something that is magic almost. It's something that is inherent in you. And I don't
Yes.
know per se that the vibe, the spirit of it is something that can even be taught. You can go to culinary school and you can learn how to do it, but it's still going to taste like just a little bit less than if someone truly made love to that plate.
That's exactly right.
Yeah, right on, right on. Well, again, thank you. I'm blushing over here. Not that you can see it, but literally my face is on fire. I can't even believe it. So you weren't a picky eater growing up. Clearly, we've determined that. Which, for as small as you are, I can't imagine that either. You were the like just the tiny little thing on your season, but
Yeah.
being the best
Yeah.
eater in the family, that's awesome.
Yeah, it's a metabolism thing, and I have to tell you, I always squash that. Don't trust a skinny chef, because the ones that you shouldn't trust are the chubby ones. The busy, successful ones are skinny because they're running around and they taste and they taste and they taste, and they don't eat a meal, and they're
Yeah.
just have rapid metabolism. So I always laugh, and I've got this for so many years. I've gotten that question, how are you so skinny? And my answer is always, I'm a chef, because I
Yeah.
think it's just so funny. You know, our lifestyle it's a lifestyle, and it's on, especially when you have your own restaurant, it doesn't stop, it doesn't shut off, and it's an extremely hard lifestyle. So, um, for me, it wasn't my first career choice. I worked on Wall Street for almost 4 years before I decided that I wanted to take food seriously.
Jeez. 4 years, and I mean, what spurred that decision forward? I mean, was there a moment?
Yes, I went out with friends, and I was in a very great, iconic New York restaurant at the time, um, called Casa La Femme, and I was so taken by the glamour of the whole thing and the beauty of the food and the greatness of the food and just the whole experience. And I knew I somehow wanted to be a part of that, and not just, the scene. I wasn't so like, glamored by the fact that there were a million celebrities in the room, although that played a part of it, because, just I think part of being a chef and taking it to the next level is the wanting to please and wanting to nurture, and that, you feel like you don't need the pat on the back, but your pleasure comes from watching people get happiness and joy from what you create. And it's just like, again, a musician or any kind of artist. And so, that night for me was the turning point. I literally went back there the next day when they were closed during the day, and I begged them to give me a job as a hostess. And I slowly worked my way up to, being a maitre d' and then a manager at that restaurant. And I was so focused and dedicated on learning every aspect of the business, and eventually quit my job, uh, a very good job on Wall Street. And then, one day I went to the bosses of Casa La Femme and I said, look, I'm going to take this seriously. I really can't communicate with the chef, and I don't feel like I have the respect. And I saw the divide between the front of the house and the back of the house. And I was calculating his food costs, and I was just kind of going through the motions without understanding it. And, I also, I think I learned very early on that most chefs are chefs, and the mistake that a lot of them make is not knowing and understanding the business side. And that's because, obviously we don't want to deal with that. We're creative people, and, sitting down with numbers and food costs and even having to sit down and explain ourselves to anyone is not a fun process. So, I literally, and I knew that I had to leave New York State in order to do it for real. And I went down south and I enrolled in a accredited culinary school, and I just put my head down and I worked all through culinary school. Um, and that was it for me. I literally knew like two people down there, and I just knew that if I was going to do it and do it well, I needed to be out of New York, and the nightlife and what I was already engulfed in.
Yeah.
Um, And then the greatest thing that I ever did was that, because I met, just very early on during school, maybe it was into my second year, I begged Anne Quatrano, who was a unbelievable world-class female chef in this world, um, working under Alice Waters and the River Cafe, and now has an empire of her own. I begged her to take me as an intern, and she didn't take interns. So
Mhm.
I was a little bit relentless with that, and I was dating a chef at the time who she was friendly with, so I was pushing him to talk to her, and at that point I was even willing to do it for nothing, just to work under her for sure. And she took me in, and she was just watching her manage time and be a female, my first female role model in my life, in my career, and how far she took it. It was just, that was a game changer for me.
Sure. I mean, Jesus, I can imagine. You bring up two super huge points there, and not to get off the whole Nikki Cascone-Grossman retrospective, looking at your history, but two like very important topics. Yeah, I think to food. First of all, and I'll admit that my line experience, my kitchen experience, is microscopic compared to anyone of any significance, but I have slung on a grill before, and I have worked with the front of the house as such. And there is such a disconnect sometimes. And I think, Nikki, you and I were talking the other night about how, you know, there is that divide. There's almost a big brick wall. And the fact of the matter is, you know, okay food can be lifted up by good service, but good service, or I'm sorry, okay food and rough front of the house service, the food becomes But if you have okay food and the front of the house service is great, then it's only going to be magnified. It's an amazing. You have to have front of house in tune with back of the house.
It's true. I mean, unfortunately, it's the way it is in this country. You just have, it's a tough, especially in New York, the caliber of employees that comes through in the kitchen, and what they're paid in their harsh environment, versus then, a server who's making maybe double what they make sometimes, as much as, and then, not treating them well. It's an ongoing problem. And unfortunately, without that synergy, you cannot have a successful restaurant. And there are some people out there, like the Danny Meyers of the world, who do what they have to do to break down that divide, and they do it well, and they're successful. If you don't work at that, you cannot have a successful restaurant, just like you said. And I agree with you wholeheartedly. I will not go back to a restaurant if the service is just ridiculously bad. I don't care how good the food is.
Yeah. No, I completely agree that service angle, as I think I mentioned, you have team A and team B. If team A is back of the house, team B is front of the house. Something goes wrong in the front of the house, team A is bitching at team B. If something goes wrong, with the dish, they're bitching back and forth. They're a team. That's the long and short of it. You're working towards the same end game, and that's important. I think I mentioned to you there's this place in Bloomsbury, this little podunk town that I'm from, but Chef Gary Vatican, Seasons on Main in Bloomsburg, 10 top, tiny, intimate, but you know what? He makes his way around to every table every night to talk and see. He helps the service staff out. There is no line between the two parties, and it's awesome, and you want to go back.
Yeah, and you feel that. Yeah, definitely.
For sure, for sure. And the other very, very important part that, I don't know if people just don't want to talk about or do, but, female chefs, I mean, I think it's still this kind of gross, gnarly guys' locker room. And I mean, you all are doing great jobs to break down that wall. You mentioned, Ann Quatrano, but it's got to be slightly daunting to try to break down that wall.
Well, I think the thing is that, I always looked at it as I'm not going to try, but this is my kitchen. And if you can't respect me and the fact that, you're working for a woman, then there's the door. But the really what it comes down to is this. It is an extremely harsh environment. And that's why there are not more female chefs because, we are the ones who carry babies and we are the ones who then kind of most of the time are home with the babies. And so I think that it's just I mean literally there are times when I might be lifting 30-40 pound bags or boxes or pots and like all day and moving around and you're on your feet for 13 hours or whatever it is. So and it's hot and it's just not a pretty environment. And so I don't think it really is attractive to a lot of women. And I think that television chefs on television have definitely helped that. And just to kind of show that there are other ways to go, and you can also be a pioneer as far as how chefs are seen nowadays and the opinions, the things that we affect with our opinions as far as agriculture and social statements and things like that. So I do think there's so many great aspects to being a female chef. However, again, like when I speak to a lot of students, and I do that, or I have done that in the past very often, especially if I do appearances, I don't particularly encourage women, believe it or not, to get into the kitchen. And, that it goes just back to everything I said. And I say this, with only good intentions. And I just kind of say there are so many other things you can do with food and with the passion that you have about it. It doesn't have to be, the bad thing about these shows on television now is that one thing, and that's you get students that come out of school, even when they're in school, and they really truly believe that they're going to get on Top Chef and their whole life's going to change. And, even I'm only 42, 43, and I still come from that. I know, it's really funny. I had to seriously think about that for a second. My, like Tom Colicchio and all these other guys that, we've been around, and he's even older than I am. You start from the bottom and you work your way around every station in the kitchen, and you do prep for years before you even get a station in the kitchen. And that's just the way it is. And you stage and you go work around wherever you can to get the experience that you need to become a well-rounded chef. And this is what I say to these students and to these women. Know that, and I took a hiatus. I went to Annie Cutrano and I said, look, I'm not sure that I really want to be a chef. I'm going to work for you in the front of the house if you'll let me. I need to get out of this, step away from the kitchen and see if this is what I want to do. Because you are making a commitment and investment for way more than doctors go to school for. People cry about 8 years of school. Yeah. When you are a chef, you are going to school, and then you better put 10 years of experience in. And, if you're lucky, it'll happen in 5. If you're lucky, you might do it right. And I have friends that have, Leah Cohen, for example, from Top Chef. She's very successful. She did it right. She's young. She packed up, moved to Thailand, did what she had to do. She still paid her dues. But again, you have to pay your dues and you have to put the time in and the work. And that's the bad thing that these shows are doing. A lot of these kids think that it's so glamorous and they have no idea what to expect. And unfortunately, it becomes a lot of them just up and leaving and saying this, nobody told me it was going to be like this.
Yeah. So many chefs, even recently on Top Chef Duels, the purse for a challenge was 10 grand. And I forget who it was. I think it might have been Kevin. I'm not sure which one. But they did one of the side interviews and they said, I don't think you people at home realize what 10 grand does. Like when we leave Top Chef, we're not rolling in it. And
Right.
the other side of that too, that you bring up, and I don't mean to breach culinary completely and go to what I do day in and day out, but I'm an e-learning designer day in and day out. And when I used to take interns would come on and they would just expect to be making X amount of dollars an hour. They'd expect to be project managing everything. I'm like, whoa, step back, kid. You need to read
Yeah.
some 500 pages of technical manuals and digest that and spit it back out as instruction. Then you can talk to me. And it's the
Yeah.
same thing. Nobody wants to crawl before they run.
No, but the thing is, what I notice is it really depends on the environment. Like, for example, you come from let's just say you come from a top 5 college, okay? That's a different world. You're preparing. It's just different. I think, what we're talking about is the majority, and what, the minority is actually the ones who don't expect to have it handed to them. So it's crazy, but it's part of, the way it is in this country now. But I mean, specifically, I do think that chefs are just rock stars right now, and it's a crazy thing for us because we're usually, slobs down in our kitchens, and we're not used to being on TV or, people asking us for autographs. That's just weird, and most of us don't have good personalities, and most of us aren't really great on the camera or really pretty for that matter. That's just a fact, because it's just not it's not a glamorous job. And if you are one of the people that sticks with it and becomes a successful chef, I mean, think about it. I could probably name a handful of them that are actually like good looking, put together, well
Yeah,
spoken. It's a harsh environment. I
yeah.
can't say that enough. I think people just really don't understand. I'm sure you've seen the movie No Reservations with Catherine Zeta-Jones.
Mm-hmm.
If
Mm-hmm.
you haven't, it's just a really fun little movie. But I love that scene, and I think it's just so amazingly accurate that she walks out of the table with the steak and slams it in front of the customer and says, "Is this rare enough for you?" I mean,
Mm-hmm.
I've had fish come in literally first table of the night, and I'm killing the fish right before I cook it. That's how fresh. It could not be any fresher. And he looks at his wife's burger and sends my fresh whole fish back and says, "It's not fresh. I want a burger." And so, okay, you deal with that 5 times on a daily basis, and you want to pull your hair out of your head.
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
And believe
It's
me, I am so not complaining. There's so many things, and chefs, I believe, are a little bit of masochists, a little in them all. We do, but there's something about the adrenaline, and again, I go back to that nurturing and that feeling that we get for from doing what we do, and that's really what it comes down to, because it is a very selfless job also.
yeah. Totally. I mean, you're putting yourself out there for public judgment every night that you go out there. And that's something again, the people that look at the plate as something that passes through their lips, gives them caloric energy so that they can live. I mean, congratulations. That's all you're doing with it. For me, and for, however many thousands, millions others, like me that look at food as more than that, man, it's just so much more. And so, it's not glamorous. I used to tell my wife at the one restaurant that I used to sling at, there was a high count of seafood on the menu, and my steering wheel used to glisten with like this fish protein just from like under my gnarly ass nails. It's just,
Hmm.
it's not pretty. It doesn't
Oh,
smell good.
Sean, I can tell you, there might have been a decade where I didn't even get a manicure. I mean, that's the thing. That's the thing about, being a female chef. You give up a lot in that respect. But my husband, used to tell me to take my chef's clothes off before I walked in the house. Like, it's just that stench, and
Yeah.
you can't get it off of you.
No, no, no. And I mean, admittedly, it was a 93 Plymouth Acclaim, so it wasn't exactly a hot rod by any stretch of the imagination. But oh
Right.
my God, that's so cool. And we completely got sidetracked from the starters, but what a cool set of questions just to go off on, and just to further elaborate on how different food can be from one person to the other. But to get back to you, and to get back to your backstory, coming up, we mentioned where you came from, and some of those things. Who would you say like touched you as the greatest culinary influence coming up? Obviously you've landed at this phenomenal point that so few can actually comprehend. Who was it that you feel started that motion forward?
I I'm gonna go back to Anne, because I have to tell you something. To this day, I've never seen a person manage time the way that she did. I still can never put my finger on it. And I just remember being very young and vulnerable and watching her be this unbelievable chef. Have, I was also around at the beginning of her empire. And I wish that I had stayed with her longer, but I always, stayed. I always knew what she was doing, and again, like I've just always been a huge fan of hers. And I mean, I just don't know. I mean, it is hard enough to have one restaurant and do that well, every detail. But some people just have that thing where they're so detail oriented and so organized in their mind. And I mean, if I tell you, I mean, she has a market called Star Provisions in Atlanta that is around the world one of the most beautiful and well done markets, gourmet markets that I have ever seen. She has multiple restaurants, and every single one of them is worthy to me of at least 4 stars on whatever level they are. And I mean, every detail, the chairs, the floor, the food presentation, the plates that she picks. I mean, it's just and then this was the thing that got me. She treated her staff, every one of them. When it was your birthday, you didn't get a card. You literally at family meal there was a cake, and she bought me my first pair of Berkeys, like my real first pair of kitchen clogs, and my first global knife. I mean, my chef bought me. Can you imagine this? I mean, I've had my own restaurants for many years, and I literally every day I would try to be uh, just half of the way that she managed her business and her staff. And believe me, she had her faults. But no, I can't. I remember she was the one I really was interested in learning about wine, more about wine. And I thought as a chef, especially cooking with it and pairing the wines. And the restaurant I was working in was called Bacchanalia, which is obviously what it is. And every night it was a wine pairing with the menu. And I mean, I really, I knew nothing. So she sent me to Sterling Vineyard School of Service and Hospitality in California, and she got me enrolled there. She got me hooked up in Markham Estates Winery's guest house, and I literally was out there for a week. Before I left, I'll never forget this. She handed me $200 cash and said, "Go, go, take care. Get your certified, whatever. Do what you need to do." And I mean, I was a line cook. I started as an intern for her. It was just amazing. And she invested in her people, and it was so smart to me. And
Yeah.
so, that to this day, I still, if I go to Atlanta, I always go to her places. I'm always watching what she's doing. And, I'm not even sure she really knows how much of an influence she had on me. And I mean, I'm a fraction of the success story she is, but I
Well, I'll
can't
tell you
even.
what. I just found her on Twitter, so trust me, she's gonna know
Yeah.
about this podcast, and hopefully she listens. I'm looking right now, and just as an aside, recipes for celebrating with Southern hospitality, Summerland, it's called, and that's
Yes.
from Chef Quattrano.
Yeah. I mean,
That's
she's awesome. Yeah. Oh, that was the other thing. They lived on a farm.
yeah.
They have like Jersey cows, and they'd always have these amazing Halloween parties, and the whole all of her employees and we I just remember one Christmas having, this whole bus, and we went to these like lights of life and went through this whole like light show and parties, and they just really knew how to invest in their people, and it was smart. Again, I my one of my biggest regrets is not staying with them longer, her and Cliff, her partner. But honestly, you should definitely check out their places. They're amazing.
Yep, absolutely. At Ann Quattrano on Twitter. So if anybody wants to check it out, feel free to do so. So
Yeah, I mean,
obviously,
James Beard award-winning chef, amazing woman.
unbelievable. I think I'm going to be ordering the cookbook tonight, actually.
Yeah.
Like I think we discussed, you're a cookbook order. I'm a cookbook order
Mhm.
too. So we're good.
I am.
So obviously, that's where your inspiration came from. What what childhood foods, looking back, obviously you cook in the present, you cook in the here and now, but your heart calls backwards. What childhood foods would you say you miss the most, give you just a heartache, and really kind of push your hand in the here and now?
Um, oh gosh. I don't even know if I can pick one thing to answer that. I have to tell you. I think, I think we talked about this. I feel like there are chefs that have a lot more kitchen experience than I ever had or will have at this point. Because, I'm done with working under chefs and staging and traveling and doing all those things. I mean, to study and to do that. But one of the things that I love to do is just, kind of grow myself, I think, at home and around where I can. Meaning by that, there might be great farms and great vintners on the South Fork, on the North Fork. Now that I'm out in Long Island, I'm really discovering, a lot of these artisans that are here, and it's just a different world from being in New York City. And so, but going back to your question, I still always kind of go back to the things, from my childhood that's my style. And it's just it's comfort, it's rustic, it's simple, it's clean. I'm not a big, I don't like a million layers on my food. I don't like heavy sauces on my food. I don't know. I think I like the clean simplicity and, just the feelings of what I grew up with that were very basic foods, like a great chicken soup. And I don't mean just, a good chicken stock. I just mean like a great chicken soup that, is done with care and a pot of sauce that's been cooking since 7 a.m. or I don't know. I'm kind of, blank right now when I'm thinking of like one specific or a few specific things that evoke anything for me more than just, like my mother's great matzo ball soup or my my grandmother's like I very rarely get a tomato sauce the way that my grandmother made tomato sauce. So to me that's like it's an art. It's a loving. It's not just, let's make a sauce and it's 2 hours later. It's something that when the love goes into it. There's just so much more to it. So I think I got a little off track from your question, but
No, it's beautiful, man. Like you said though, it's that gift, and very, not a lot of people look at food as such a gift, as such a, I don't know, man. I want a plate to be a hug. I want a plate to be a handshake. I want a plate to be at least something, intimate between, two people. For me, every time I
right.
eat it, I want to feel somebody's heart, soul going into the dish. So no, that definitely didn't get off the track. I think, the more you might perceive it to get off the track, I think the less it does. The more it's honest, and it's awesome. So thank you. That answer is phenomenal. So we're going to move on into the next section, then the mains, as far as where you're at now and what it is you're doing in the here and now. So where would you say that currently you draw your culinary inspiration from the most? Is it a person? Is it a place? Is it a thing, idea?
I definitely would have to say that's my son. And, part of that is because I have now, at this point in my career, become a crusader for nutrition and just finding the best products and those kind of artisans that are out there and available to me and my family. And and also just to help bring them to the forefront, with my platform and my voice. So, my son is just such an inspiration to me, and also the next project, the next venture that I have uh, in front of me. And so, what I'm really planning on doing right now, and it's been a lot of demographic studies and planning and research at the moment. I am looking to open a culinary studio. And what I mean by that is I want to have a room where I can do whatever I want in the way of education and bringing the culinary arts to the public. Um, I plan on doing classes. I plan on bringing in vintners and, again, local artisans. I have this woman right here where I live who's making fresh baby food and yogurts and all these great products that you can get in delivery service. So, you don't have to worry about what you're feeding your baby, and it's not store bought. And just, you know, I don't know. I want to do a sausage and beer making class, or, have people come and just have a great night out with their family where we're making pasta together, or, bringing in the farmer that's out in the North Fork that has this new great way to raise chickens humanely, organically, and you know, all these different ways of to educate and be passionate about food and share that with the public. That's kind of where I am now. Attached to that, I'm going to have a grab and go area where you can buy fresh food for any level or any age person in your family, from 6 months to however old. And that's because I want to help families have a quick, healthy option. I think that's something that's definitely a new trend that you see more growing, especially when I travel around the country. Just to be able to walk in and grab, you see quinoa on every deli shelf now, everywhere you go. I mean, that's just amazing to me. So
Mhm.
I want to have this little grab and go with, again, integrating some of the local artists here, like this spoon-fed baby food company, or Southdown Coffee Roasters from Red Hook, Brooklyn, and things like that. So it's going to be kind of a little culinary epicenter, I like to call it.
I like it. I like epicenter. Epicenter.
Yeah,
At the center of
yeah.
everything.
So,
Yeah, that's such a cool concept. I mean, overall, the one thing that we've always done, my wife and I, is that we would take whatever we would make for dinner, and we'd put portions of it into muffin tins, blend it down if we needed to, because we've always ate healthy, and it
right.
keeps. We have a 19-month-old now, but when he was just a wee little one growing up, we just take what we were eating, put it in, maybe blend it down a little bit, and let him get used to textures and things like
Yes,
that,
and
at the same
flavors.
time
Yeah.
being what we're eating. So,
Yeah.
oh, that's
And
awesome.
I think people really do shy away from seasoning and flavor with children and babies.
Hmm.
And I have a philosophy that, one of the reasons toddlers are so picky is because of that. Because,
Yeah,
we start out so bland with them, which is great. They do that for health reasons. But then you slowly have to really expose them to so much, and sophisticate their palates and grow their,
right.
curiosity about food. I feel so lucky and blessed that my child is such a great eater, but that was a lot of work and a lot of,
Yeah.
pressure, and just like you said, educating myself, and trying different things and exposing him to different things. So,
Yeah. And I mean,
that
that's
again,
that's what people say so often, that, oh, well, he's just a kid. He won't.
right,
He's just a kid. He won't. No, he won't, because you didn't take the time to
right.
properly
No, we give
Show
up.
him.
We give up.
Yeah.
Yeah. It's a really, really, really big problem in this country. I mean, I can't tell you. I go to birthday parties all the time, and you said you have a 4-year-old. My son is almost 4. It's just amazing to me how bad these children eat. And it blows my mind. And that's one of the reasons, I can't go to sleep at night feeling like I'm a chef. I'm educated in this field. I need to be a part of that movement. I need to do something, and it's what I really feel in my bones that that I was meant to do. I don't think that, you know, it's a chore. It's something that I want people to have a place to come and, choose to indulge and educate themselves in food, in all aspects of food, and just have that
Mhm.
at their fingertips. So many parents say to me on a daily basis, "What do you put in his lunchbox?" I'm stuck. I don't know what to feed him. It's
Mhm.
just I can't tell you. All day, every day I get the question. And so, it's kind of driven me to this project now, and um I'm very excited about it. I really want to do so many different things there, and I plan on bringing in a lot of great chefs. And I did want
Yeah.
to go back and tell you, because you had asked me this, and this is part of now. My company is called Red Hook Hospitality, and I do culinary production for public events. And part of what I have done under that umbrella is done a lot of work for NBC and Top Chef, starting with the Top Chef tour that went on for 4 or 5 years around the country with a huge truck and a kitchen in an 18-wheeler truck, and just stopped and had different chefs on every stop. And so I basically would help produce it and coordinate with the chefs and the recipes and design the kitchen. And same with the Top Chef pop-up restaurant in the city, things like that. Um, I'll be involved in. I just did an event at Great Adventure with a food truck, um, kind of a food truck court where they had this whole event, and people attending the park could come and go out and try all these new food trucks. So I love the production side of it, and occasionally I do appear at those events myself. But so
Yeah.
my company is let's see, it's about 5 years old, and I plan on continuing to do that. And I do take events as, as I choose the projects that I take on. But a lot of that has also let me be very in touch with the show Top Chef and the all of the chefs, and just be a part of it for so much longer. I mean, my show aired in 2008, and we're here in
Mhm.
2014, and I still work very closely with them. So I mean, it's trickled off a little bit the last year, but I'm
Yeah.
really still so proud to be a part of that, the whole Bravo and Top Chef experience. And I again, it's like we all pledge together. It's like an
That's right.
unspoken thing. You meet another Top Chef, and it's like, I just get it. We get it.
Yep. Yep.
You're kind of cut from the same cloth now.
You were through the ringer too. Absolutely.
Yeah.
That's so phenomenal, and that's such a cool project. I mean, I for one, and I hope everybody listening would obviously, stay tuned to this, but I certainly want to see, how this rolls down. So, Nikki, over your career, and clearly it's lengthy, it's amazing, it's astounding to me.
Thanks.
What would you consider to be your personal greatest creation? Like, what is something that you came up with, nobody else can claim, and it's what you're proudest of?
Are you speaking specifically to to a recipe, or a project, or what?
You could go either way. You could go either way, and
Okay.
that just speaks to, again, the span of your career. You can say either of those,
Yeah, it's
but yeah,
hard.
either
It's
way.
hard because you know what? I I'll do both. How about this? Two
Okay.
things. And I have a lot of these stories, but I somehow became that kind of chef and restaurant person because, again, I was a general manager for John George. I opened,
Mhm.
some of his biggest restaurants. So, I kind of pride myself on being a restaurateur, a business person, you know, as well as a chef. And that was a good thing for me and a bad thing for me, especially when competing with Top Chef against people like Richard Blaze, who really, they went food all the way, kitchen all the way. And I kind of balanced myself out, and I wanted to be a sommelier, and I wanted to be rounded, and I knew I would be a business person in the field. So I always regret that I did not travel more and do food more and work and stage under these chefs. And I had to work extra hard to keep up with those chefs. So that said, I think that one of the things that I was proudest of was 24 Prince, which was, um, finally the restaurant that I was able to open with partners and be the chef and on my own terms. But that prior to that, I had become a chef that was known for going in and again a restaurant person that I went in and opened restaurants, planned them and opened, and I did 12 projects. I opened 12 projects throughout my career, and that's a lot. On this, if speak to other people, you want to go through it a couple of times, and that's it. Um,
Right, right.
but I did love that, and I kind of became known for, you know, being the one to kind of come in, help set it up, get it up and running, and go my own way. Um, and then, I don't know why this comes to mind, but it's still a dish that I make to date. I was booked for an event called the Green Living Expo, and the chef the chef that was there coordinating it, we had, I requisitioned out all the food I wanted for my recipe, and I was getting up on a platform and doing this cooking demonstration. And on the way there, I get a call that one or two of the deliveries, something happened. It was bad weather, something wasn't on the truck, and then something else. And regardless, I had pretty much nothing that I wanted to go in there and prepare. So I walked in. Oh, then it gets worse. I was in a town car and we were on the LIE, and I literally walked into the event with no ingredients about 30 minutes before I was about to go on stage in front of a very large crowd. And so the reason why this I think was such a huge accomplishment to me is all of those things, but I literally walked in the back and came up with a dish that I eventually used on my own menu, and I still make to date. And it was spring, and he did have some fresh English peas, and I made a red quinoa salad with shallots and English peas, and with it was a warm shallot vinaigrette. I'm trying to remember everything. I haven't made it now in a little bit. That exact way. I've tweaked it. And I seared some prawns, and I did like a balsamic reduction, and um, and that was it. Toasted pepitas, which are the pumpkin seeds. And
Oh
the
my
dish was
goodness.
so good. It was so good. It was so simple, but it was so like such a Top Chef moment that you just walking in there and all the circumstances, and then coming out with this amazing dish. Even on Top Chef, like I was never able to successfully create a dish that was so perfect in that one day.
Hmm.
So,
Hmm.
yeah.
But like so many would say, it doesn't have to be complex to be great, and
No,
sometimes the
and I don't
simplest
do
thing.
complex. Yeah. My food is
Got right on.
simple, and I prefer clean food. I don't like heavy food. I've never been like a big French saucy. Even when I was going through culinary school, I struggled with that because all the curriculums are very French
Sauce
to date.
based.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yep.
So, you have to you learn that foundation and then you grow from there. But
Right on.
yeah, I've never been a big fan of that. I
Right on.
appreciate it.
Yeah, definitely a tip of the hat to it for sure. So what, in your opinion, would you say is going to be like the next big thing in food? Here we stand, October 7th, 2014. What's going to be the next big thing?
Oh, it's definitely this fresh, fast food thing. I mean, there's no question in my mind that it's already going that way, but I think chefs, as they mature and they evolve, and life is what it is now. Again, in 2014, it's so fast and it's so technical, and um, chefs are becoming so much more savvy. I just think it's you work and you work and you work, and you can have restaurants, and it's very difficult to run a successful restaurant and make money. And
Mhm.
so I think what's happening is chefs are realizing that there's a market for they can still maintain their integrity and have a successful business model. And you have places like Dig Inn, um, and Chopped, and even I have to give it to Chipotle. I mean, that's not
Mhm.
really kind of what I see, but I mean, for them to come out and say, hey, none of our food is GMO, you know I
Mhm.
mean, that's huge for a giant like that. So I don't know, I think you're going to see more chefs like the Top Chef people, and the John Georges, and the big Jamie Olivers, and all these big chefs. This is what they're doing. They're doing fast, fresh, and that's, good for everyone. Everyone wins.
Right on. I completely agree. So along the lines of trends here again, let's go to the other side of the fence. What trend that you see pervasive in food today are you just ready to see die a fiery death? Just go away.
Oh gosh, hmm, I'm kind of over the burger thing, I have to say. Um,
Hmm.
I think I'm really over the burger thing. Um, I'm a big BurgerFi fan, and there's some other places because I love the quinoa burger and the fries, but I mean, it's like, enough. Let's just have a few and be done with it. And I'm not sure. I don't know. I just don't want to see them on every corner anymore.
No,
Um,
I agree.
yeah. So, I mean, that's really the one thing that comes to mind right now. I can't really think
Right
of
on.
anything that I just don't like. I don't love big, giant restaurants, like big, giant restaurants. I feel like there's something that gets lost in that, and it's hard for me to want to go there and have like a personal experience, which I do every time I eat. It's one thing to go out at night and go to Tao and go to Budokan and go to these massive, Las Vegas style restaurants. It's crazy to me that there are so many of them. Um, so I mean, I don't want to say I'm not a fan. It's just, it's not my preference.
No, I understand. I understand where you're coming from. I think there's something way more intimate and just sexy in general about a tent top in a room
Yeah,
than there is about this massive banquet hall where everybody's half in the bag and tripping over it. Like
right.
there's something to giving the reverence to food with which it
Yeah,
deserves.
well,
So
as
no, I don't think
you
you're hating on them.
you were talking about, your local place that you love to go, and that kind
Yep,
of intimacy you have and that connection. I mean, to me, that is like, that's it. That's everything.
that's exactly. Yeah, totally, totally. So, last section of the interview is the afters. These are the ones that'll take you maybe a little bit out of what you would consider a normal interview question. I'm sure you've been interviewed several times. Hopefully, some of this is a little avant-garde, if you will. So, with that said, Nikki, I'm standing in your kitchen, professionally or at home. I don't care. You pick. What music do I hear?
I am so all over the place. ZZ Ward, Christina Perry, Mumford and Sons. Um, yeah, I'm kind of all over the place. I have to tell you, I really am. I love, um, I don't know, I like more of that, artsy songwriter type, even the bands, but that more, um, just but I like bluesy rock and roll. I'm just all over the place, but those are some of my faves.
That's what would be a phase. Right on, right on. Um, the one that gets the most blushes out of all the questions. How's your mouth in the kitchen? I'm
Oh my
going to
God.
assume from a couple episodes that I can recall. I
No,
have the
you know
movie
what?
ratings here.
I want to tell you something. This is something that really, I said, oh my gosh, as soon as you said that, because this is something that haunts me forever.
Yeah, yeah.
I came home from Top Chef, and when it aired, my staff and my family said to me, "Who was that person? Who are you?" Because I did not get caught on camera one time cursing, and I was so acutely aware of it when I was away and filming that I did not want to come off as that person, that I was on my best behavior, but I
Oh
have
my
got to tell
lord.
you, I I'm seriously, I might have the most disgusting potty mouth. All chefs do. What you saw in my season was the epitome of it. We all curse like truck drivers, even, I'm a little, 100-pound girly girl, and yeah, it's bad. It's bad.
Yeah. No, 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 no. I
Still,
totally agree. And I think overall you just hear so many beeps.
hmm
You start to lump it all together. And I remember just well, I mean it doesn't even have to be your season. It's specific. Everybody,
Yeah.
there's
Well,
always that.
well, you know what? Okay, if you listen even later on, even and watch what happens when even in the reunion, we actually got a lot of slack in the press because we were such a bad season with the cursing, really bad. So I just thought it was so crazy that, the way that I am, I really did not get caught one time. And we have cameras on us and mics on us
Yeah.
until we say, okay, we're going to bed, you know?
Yeah.
I mean,
Yeah.
it's basically 48 hours of filming one show, and they did not catch me cursing. So I don't know. I'm like pissed about that. It's funny. So
They're
I don't
ruining
know.
your image, Nikki. What happened?
I
What
know.
happened?
I know. I know.
So, do you have a nom de plume? Do you have a favorite curse in the kitchen?
Oh, yeah, a motherfucker without a doubt. And this is
Nice.
again, my tag name is Mother Sheffer because motherfucker is my favorite thing to say. Um, and yeah, that's my favorite one.
You can't chisel the grin off my face right now. Every time I ask a question to people, there's a couple little church mice who are like, "Oh no, we don't swear." I'm like, "Bullshit, stop it."
Yeah.
You
Oh
know,
no.
if my kids are around, I rein it in. But good lord, I mean,
Right.
my mouth is a fucking mess whenever
Yeah.
we get
Well,
going. If the
listen,
kids aren't there.
we spend so much time in one of the most hostile environments for a profession that you could possibly imagine. And then on top of that, you're dealing with the public.
Yeah.
That's a friggin' nightmare to begin with.
Yep.
So,
Right on.
to not be able to express that and hold it in would be absolute torture.
Yeah, for sure. For sure. All right. Next one. You're going to be stranded on a deserted island. Go with me here. And you're only allowed to take three foods or food type items with you. What would they be and why?
I could not live without coffee, and I do not drink caffeine. So that's more of a proof that I cannot live without coffee.
Right on.
Um, I, hmm. Well, I love garlic, but I don't, having it alone wouldn't be any fun. I cannot live without garlic. I love it. And the other thing, oh God, I honestly have to tell you that pizza is one of my favorite foods in the whole entire world. And having spent, a good amount of time in Italy and eating all different kinds of it, I think I would want pizza with me, probably,
I
or
can't.
pasta. I don't know. I couldn't decide that. Yeah,
That's a
coffee
tough
for
one. That's a
sure,
tough one.
garlic for sure. I'm such a big pasta eater. Oh my God. Definitely not one of those women that would ever give up carbs like that in
Yeah.
in a million years. So I don't know. That's
No, I
definitely
think
like it. Go ahead.
coffee, garlic, and pizza. I mean, that's a
Yes.
solid repertoire right there.
Yeah, that's a good.
Right on, right on. So, what is, and this is assuming there is one, I don't want to assume that there is one, a food or dish that still scares or intimidates you, your culinary nemesis, if you will. Do you have one?
Uh, um. Well, every chef has them. I think that I'm just trying to think of a really good one because, God, that's a tough one. I honestly think that, cooking fish to me, um, is because there's such an art to it and it needs to be done perfectly. And it's at any second, you could really fuck it up.
Yeah,
And there's so many different types of fish. it's not so much the technique of it, it's more that there's so many different kinds of fish that I always feel like I never know enough about it. Um,
Yeah,
and then, also taking it to the next level, like, okay, is this fish safe? I mean, it's just on another level. So I feel like that's wine to me.
yeah,
It's a never ending learning, thing. And fish is like that. I'm not intimidated cooking it. I'm more intimidated just that by the mass amount of knowledge that I need to have about it.
sure. Yeah, yeah. I mean, it's so varied and like, at least to me, other proteins, you've got minutes to play with. Fish, you have seconds.
Right. Yeah.
It doesn't play. It doesn't play.
Yeah, but I
Um,
mean, there's so many different kinds, and where are they from? And it's intense, especially
yeah,
now. Again, we have to worry about, is it wild? Is it fresh? Is it frozen? Is it, farm raised? So, I mean, there's just so many different things. And how's the
yeah,
water in the Pacific these days? And,
right.
I don't know. It's just, for some reason, that's my thing. Like, I have a mental fear when it comes to, I take a lot of extra time when I'm selecting my fish.
Right on. Yeah. I mean, I couldn't agree more. Fish is definitely, a wild card. So yeah, I think it's cool to hear somebody at your level, still kind of echo the fears that I have that like my
Right,
wife has about
right,
cooking salmon versus
absolutely.
tuna versus cod. They all play
Yeah.
differently. So
No, and I
cool.
have to tell you, when I do cooking classes, which is one of my favorite things to do, like for a little, fun, I always try to do a fish because I feel like a lot of home cooks are intimidated by that and, kind of shy away from fish. So, yeah, that's a good point.
Right on. Right on. So next question. I don't know if you've ever heard of Melanie Dunea or My Last Supper. Have you had a chance to read My Last Supper?
I have it and I have not read it.
All right, right on. So I've got both volumes of it, and my wife and I will stay up late into the night drinking wine and just reading this to each other. It's phenomenal, and the premise for it is just famous chefs, 5 questions, and it's actually admittedly where I drew some of the inspiration for just the structure of this podcast from. Set number of questions. Let's get into these artists' heads, and
I'm looking for it while we speak to each other because
it's
I
awesome. You
have a
will not
cookbook.
regret.
I have a problem with cookbooks. I sneak them in the house like shoes.
Yeah,
Okay.
that's awesome. That's awesome. But borrowing a little bit, if you will, from Melanie Denea. My Last Supper, the 5 questions are about, if tomorrow was your day to punch your ticket,
Right.
what would everything be about? So I ask you, chef, guests, dishes, music, drinks, what would they be?
Guests, I would have Anthony Bo- Anthony Bourdain, Martha Stewart because I would make her clean up just to,
Ah,
yeah, make her clean up. I would have, Howard Hughes, if he was alive, I think would be such an interesting person to sit down with. Um, and I think this is my dinner party. I'm designing this dinner party. Um, I had someone else in my mind just now and I lost it. Um, all right, we'll come back to that. I think
yeah.
I love, this is so crazy, but this is me. I love Williams Sonoma simple white china. It's like perfect every day, and that's what I can't like eat on Versace plates. I'm sorry. And I also like to really look at my food, and that just gets too crazy, all that fancy stuff. Um, I would be listening to I would probably be listening to some of the people that I said, Mumford and Sons, Dave Matthews, ZZ Ward, that kind of stuff. Um, what was the other part of it? What would we be eating?
What would you eat? Yeah.
Oh gosh. Um, that's hard because I don't know if I could really pin that down. It's just too much to say. I love one of the the restaurants that I recently opened was called Octavia's Porch, and it was a medley of kind of global Jewish cuisine. So like we had Shanghai kreplach. So that was like, the Jewish people, the Jewish cluster in Shanghai, China would make these kreplachs but Asian style. So it was this cool like fusion menu that just really worked, and I think that my menu for this party would have to be something kind of fused like that because there's too many foods that I love. And I always struggle with that, kind of figuring out if I want to go a certain way or not, and how do I blend it all together.
Yeah.
So my menu would be like crazy fusion, but it would work. It would all go together. It wouldn't be like, wonton soup and then rigatoni alla vodka or something like that.
Right on.
What else? I mean, probably tiramisu for dessert, like really authentic tiramisu, because that's one of my
Okay.
favorite things in the world. Like really authentic.
Yeah.
And
Right on.
what else? I
I think that's, I mean, geez.
I
Drinks?
guess that's to say this would be my last meal. I could not do that. I don't know how they do that in that book.
Right on. Yeah, no, it's tough, and every time my wife and I have sat down to read it, it's this almost somber thing.
Yeah.
To
It's
think
crazy.
about that being it is just
No,
crazy.
yeah, I mean, I the only thing that, I feel like really strongly about, I don't know. It would definitely the tiramisu. I don't know. I can't. I
Yeah.
have to stop thinking about it because it's
Well,
making me a little bit anxious.
yeah, no. I totally get you. That's that. Like I said, it's the same thing we both say. We look at each other and ask each other, "What would yours be?" I don't know. I can't handle this. And I guess that's what comes with the territory of taking it, taking food to that level. So,
Right,
no,
right,
that's
right,
awesome.
right.
That's phenomenal.
You know what?
Um,
One of the yeah, little homemade like mini lasagnas, like lasagnette,
oh,
but handmade pasta with like sheep's milk. Oh, I don't
yeah.
know. That's just for some reason I'm thinking about that right now.
If you can hear, I am getting fatter over here just through headphones. So thank you for that. And Chef, final question. Simplest question, but the most complex, I suppose, at the same time. What is food to you in one word?
Um, what is food to me in one word? I, oh my gosh. Is this in the book also? I want to know what some of these chefs say. Oh my
It
gosh.
isn't. It isn't. This is one
Okay.
that I came up with, and it actually stalled my wife out for about 12 minutes. So,
Oh my gosh. I mean, food, I would have to say just life. I can't like not only is it my life, but it gives life and it sustains life. I think life is my word.
yeah, that's a phenomenal answer, and I think that speaks to everything that you've said up until this point and what it means to you, and obviously what a stellar example and just environment you're providing, for both your culinary ventures and your family. So,
Thank
man,
you.
that's as solid an answer as you can get. So, well, Chef, I beyond words appreciate you taking the time. I know you're a busy person, as our reschedules can attest to. It can be difficult, but I could not thank you more if I tried, and I really mean it. Are there any things that I can plug for you this evening?
You know what? We're gonna revisit that conversation when I get this culinary studio named and up and running.
Okay.
Again, my blog is Mother Cheffer, and my Twitter handle is Mother Cheffer, and on Instagram I'm Mother Cheffer, and I do, promote a lot of my businesses, my events, and everything on those social media sites. So thank you for asking.
Awesome. And again, thank you so much. Again, ladies and gentlemen, my guest this evening has been Chef Nikki Cascone-Grossman. She's at mothercheffer.com, also Red Hook Hospitality. My producer has been the Reverend Johnny Lemuria Robinson, producer, host of the Pleasure Saucer podcast. And my name, your host, is Sean Rossler. Catch us next time with episode 10, and we'll talk to you soon. Take care.